You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Looking forward to this weekend's house calls. Looking forward to all the questions that have come in over the past couple weeks. We've got some great ones here today. So, of course, always happy to help. Always happy to really try my best to get people started in the right direction in order to overcome their weight loss-based issues. We have some skin-based issues looked at today. Wellness, anti-aging, and really just overall advice. So what I want to do with these house calls is give direction. I don't necessarily want to give the exact answer, meaning that I will make lab recommendations always. I'll do that. I'll make nutritional supplement recommendations. I will always make recommendations, but I want you to know it is the beginning of the next step in your journey, because I know a lot of people have written in, well, they've been doing wellness-based things and weight loss-based, things in anti-aging for many, many years, and they're not where they want to be. However, what I want to do is offer a new point of view, a new place. So it is a new journey because it's down a different path. I want you to get started down that path, move forward, run a lab test, use the nutritional supplements, or just change the nutrition, do a detox, do some of the clay masks maybe that I'll talk about. Lots of different things. There's so many different avenues we can take. We're going to explore all of them. And then feel free to check back in. I love the check backs in, 3 months later, 4 months later, because I always say, 12 weeks, literally in 12 weeks, most people can dramatically transform both their mind and body. That is the amount of time I've seen it take for true transformation. Now, do people get better, like feeling dramatically better within 21 days? Yes, and no clearer case can I see that than doing something like the 21-day Dr. Ball Detox, because it does so much so quickly. However, when I'm talking about deep cellular change, I'm talking about allowing the process in the body of actually allowing for cell turnover. And that cell turnover takes about 3 to 4 months. So it makes sense that in 12 weeks, we see deep change in the body, and then every 12 weeks thereafter. So what I look for in the lives of the people that I work with as well in our community is compounding change. And that's in the right direction, right? That's in a good direction, but it could be in a wrong direction, meaning that if you don't take hold of your health, if you don't take hold of your overall life, you can move in the wrong direction real fast, and that compounds as well. I think we've all been there before. Our job is to catch ourselves when we start to slide and then move back forward in the right direction. And it's honestly why I believe today, 20 plus years after I got sick, that I feel better than I did as a teenager. And that is the honest truth. I wake up with more energy. Just for an example, like last night, one of my little girls was sick. I had to get up with her. I had to make sure that she was taken care of, and she's fine, but she's 3 years old and she gets sick. It happens. That's all right. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I still feel great today. Now, like if I really took advantage of that in a bad way and I would go like a week without sleep, sure, I wouldn't be feeling great. That's for sure. But when you get your body healthy, it has a lot more flexibility. That means I can now go a night with just a couple hours of sleep. Getting up every couple hours, disjointed sleep, check on her, make sure she's okay. But that can happen. Now, back in the day, one night without sleep for me, I would be wiped out for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and I would most likely get a sinus infection. I would get some type of cold, chest congestion it would lead to, and it would be 2 to 3 weeks of a vicious cycle of essentially sinus infection, then it drips into my chest, then I get bronchitis or I get pneumonia, which happened 3 out of 5 years when I was in my early 20s. I mean, it's brutal. But now that just does not happen anymore, and I just remember those. So, but the truth is this, is that I just won't let it happen anymore, because I won't let myself slide. Now, of course, I have my cheat meals. I have travel where I have to travel and go to the West Coast, and my sleep gets thrown off maybe a little bit. But I always keep trying to stay in balance. That's all any of us can do, and hopefully we can handle a lot of that today on today's house call. So episode 666 today, stephencabral.com/666. Then what does that mean? Well, it means this, is that any lab I talk about, any recommendation I talk about, any product that I talk about, or a previous podcast will all be linked up today at stephencabral.com/666. So if you hear me mention anything today, I'm going to link it up right there. So it makes it easier, right? Instead of saying, go to this, go to that, go to, So it's easier just to go to that one page today, just like any show notes page. It will have my recommendations, my links right there. All right, so let's get into the first question. It's from Anonymous. Anonymous wrote in, hello, I heard you mention to go backwards to see what has worked in the past. For my acne growing up, I was put on zpacks, which is a type of antibiotic, one time a month for some years. I was also on 2 separate rounds of Accutane. Both of these treatments work while taking them. After I was off the antibiotic or when Accutane was done, acne came back. My question is, the antibiotic and Accutane, are they different things? So how do I know which is causing my acne today? Today, it is on my back, neck, face, sporadic. Worse with my period, but really it's all the time. I also always break out after a workout. Is my sweat dirty? I am healthy and do detoxes a lot. Thank you for all of your advice. All right, so Anonymous, happy to help with this, and you're right. I always say to people, whether it's pharmaceutical-based, supplement-based, lifestyle-based, I do not care. If you have allergies and you tell me that Sudafed works for you, or pseudoephedrine, or anything like that, or any type of antihistamine works for you, I want to know. I'm not going to recommend it, but that tells me then your allergies are most likely to do with histamines, because when you take an antihistamine, even though it's a pharmaceutical, and we don't necessarily want you doing that, it works. Okay, great. Now I know from a naturopathic perspective that I can give you a natural antihistamine while at the same time building up your diamine oxidase, while at the same time understanding that diamine oxidase is predominantly made in the gut, predominantly made towards the lower part of the small intestine called the jejunum as well as the ileum, and I can start to repair those villi and enterocytes, which help to manufacture that. Plus, I understand that if that's not in good enough supply, then it's most likely there's a B vitamin deficiency, there's vitamin K, because we know it's manufactured there. The problem is, like, these things are read and they're just kind of like glazed over in medical school, and then everybody just forgets about them. But if you make nutrition essentially your life's work, and all that matters is understanding like how the body essentially digests food, breaks down food, utilizes nutrients, and removes waste, well then, things become just much more clear. I don't know how I got on that topic, so let's get back to your question, Anonymous. Here's the thing. Accutane essentially works like vitamin A, okay, of a synthetic vitamin A, and it helps to decrease the sebum, the oil production, the oil glands in the skin. So that's how Accutane works, and it also helps regeneration of the skin as well, because that's what vitamin A does. Now, you can get your vitamin A from carrots or other things as well, but of course, Accutane is just obviously a stronger version, so I'm making light of that. And antibiotics, well, what do? Well, what happens is right around the hair follicles and the glands in the face that also produce oil, well, it can build up in bacteria, and then that bacteria, of course, come out as acne. We see that as the pustules, the bacteria literally exploding, erupting through the skin. So what do? Well, here's the thing. There's 3 main things that I have to recommend to you. Is that once you go on a Z-Pack, which is azithromycin, I believe, it's an antibiotic. Well, it's definitely an antibiotic. I just don't know of Z-Pack. Can't remember back in the day. And it's funny too, because I probably took 50 Z-Packs. Like, that's no exaggeration. Probably around, 40 to 50 during my childhood of Z-Packs. We literally had extra Z-Packs in our closet when I was younger. There was 4 kids in my family. We would take them at the smallest sign of like a cold, like sinus congestion, whatever it might be. But what happens is, over the long term, it wipes out a lot of the good bacteria in your gut. I can't recommend to you enough making sure that you do not have bacterial overgrowth in your gut. So I'm going to recommend an organic acids test. And I'm also recommending a stool test. I don't always recommend a stool test, but for you, do, because I want to make sure that you don't have any type of parasites, of worms, of anything like that could also be causing the acne on your back. And yes, if your skin is not clean or your blood's not clean and you're sweating and those things are being pushed through the skin, and then that settles on the skin, that could cause additional breakouts. So of course, you will shower off after your workouts as best you can. So that's where I would get started, is look for those underlying root causes. Is it a bacterial issue? Oh, because you can get vitamin A pretty easily, right? So if you could use like a carrot seed oil on your face. You could use a red raspberry leaf. You could do green clay masks or bentonite clay masks to pull the bacteria out of the skin of the face. You can just check back on my previous podcast for that. stephencabral.com/podcast as well. Whenever you have a search term like mask or clay mask, you could type it right in there in the search bar. But I want to find out why you have this. And so I would certainly look towards your gut first, especially if you have protein seeping through the gut wall. So I would run an organic acids test and I would run a stool test. If you could only do one, I would do the organic acids test. If you could do 3, well, then I would do a food sensitivity test as well. All right, the next question is from Jay. Jay writes in, "Hi, Dr. Cabral. Thank you for teaching us to take control of our health, research, test, and make changes. I'm working on it, but would appreciate some insight from you. I did a food sensitivity test and it came back high for the foods below. Some suggested to me that they are histamine-based, but I am low for all other histamine-based foods. Avoiding yeast is tricky as it is so many things. I'm a plant-based and gluten-free, but to now have to exclude yeast, corn, and pea is tricky. Pea protein is in all protein powders. And this was always a staple of my morning routine. My primary symptom is chronic pain. Would you recommend I avoid all these foods for 3 months? I also did a hair tissue mineral analysis. I'm not going to go through all the different things because, again, I just can't read people's labs for them on a house call. I'm going to do my best to give overall recommendations. But remember, it would not be ethical of me. Honestly, it would not be ethical of me to read a question and then make specific recommendations based on a 2-minute synopsis or 1-minute synopsis of your condition. So hopefully that makes sense and hopefully you can understand that. But I can give you great recommendations. So right now, just keep in mind that a food sensitivity test, so we have a food sensitivity test called our IgG food sensitivity test. It's amazing. It's easy to do. We do it with kids. We do it with adults. It's fantastic. And so here's the thing though, food sensitivity tests do not test for histamine-based foods. They test for a reaction to certain proteins. So it's the protein in the food that's causing this antigen-based reaction. So your body, from an immunoglobulin G position, which just means a white blood cell perspective, attacks that food from a delayed or latent-based response. So my issue with you is you could potentially actually have a lectin-based issue or a candida-based overgrowth issue. And the reason why I mention that is that if you are having sensitivities to what you feel are histamine-based foods, well, lectins can trigger histamine-based reactions as well, without a doubt, like a mast cell-based or mastocytosis-based issue. And you, on the other side of that, want to make sure that you replenish your B vitamins, make sure that you are using a methylated B vitamin, like our methylated multivitamin, like our daily activated multi, as well, or the daily nutritional support. You may also want to look at overall methylation-based issues just by really working on your liver as well, doing a detox, or again, you could take an activated B complex as well. If you're doing the multi, you just need one of those in the morning. And I also want you to know this, that your Th1 to Th2 balance is very important in terms of histamine-based reactions, with Th2 being more of a histamine-based precursor. So what do you have to do? Well, I had all of these issues. I had massive lectin issues, massive histamine-based issues. I won't even go into it today of how bad it was. Tongue swollen, eyes swollen all the time. I looked like a mess. I was a mess. But here's the thing. You can correct this. Now, lurking in my background are still those issues. I'm not going to lie, meaning like I can't go out and just have massive amounts of dried, aged cheeses and aged meats or fish or anything like that, which are, aged foods, smoked foods, very, very high in histamines. I could do some. That's not a problem because I've corrected it. But still, in my code, we'll put it there, is going to be the predilection to being able to or having to suffer from mast cell production-based issues. Do keep in mind I took over, not my choice, but took over 3,000 capsules of amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic in my lifetime. That's why I'm recommending to you, without knowing your past, that you yourself also run, what's going on here, run an organic acids test. Just see if there is a yeast overgrowth. It seems to me a lot of people have elevated levels of what's called Th17 and Th2 when they have elevated levels of candida. So without you having to run extravagant blood work, you could simply run an organic acids test to see what's going on in your gut. You'll repair your gut. You'll seal up your gut wall. You'll decrease then your mast cell-based sensitivity because there will be less proteins leaking through. And for now, instead of using pea protein, you're welcome to use hemp protein. And if you're doing a vegan-based protein powder, that would work just fine. Okay, up next is, I hope I pronounce this right, Chirag. It's C-H-I-R-A-G, Chirag. We'll pronounce it like that for right now. Apologize. Hi, Dr. Cabral. I live in New Delhi, India, as of November 2017. We're living in a completely hazardous environment with air quality completely deteriorated now. What can I do to make sure that me and my family are healthy and our bodies completely detoxify those harmful air chemicals? So Chirag, really great question. I've been to New Delhi myself twice, and I love the city. It's a beautiful city, a lot of history, a lot of culture. It's also a great kind of stepping off point to go to the north, to go to the south, east, west of India. And I've been all over India. I studied in the north, I studied in Delhi, and I've studied in the south as well, kind of the birthplace of Ayurveda in Kerala, but all over really. So love India, but I do agree in some of the major cities, just like when I was in Beijing studying at traditional Chinese medicine hospitals, the pollution is pretty intense. And so what do? I always say you can't control outside forces, but you can control your own health. So what we need to do is this. We need to make sure that you do have a home air filter going all the time. So all hours of the day, and that we are essentially filtering the air. Now, even though it's not great, I also don't want you to have like a totally closed environment. And it's not great, but what we want to do is we do want to let your air from your house be filtered. So we want to kind of get the windows open at least a couple minutes a day just to circulate the air so you don't keep getting the stale air in your house. But you want that air filter going. And what you want to do is, I've done a whole show on air filters. You can just go to stevencabral.com/air filter. But you know what? I'll put that in the show notes today. Why don't I make it easier for you? Just go to stevencabral.com/666, and I'm going to put in my air filter show. I do recommend that. You'll be able to get those shipped to India, no problem, without a doubt. And the other thing too is, well, what do we have to do? Well, we just need to make sure that your toxicity levels are low. I don't talk about this a lot, but you could run a toxicity test. The tox test, the GPL tox, it's a great test. It really is. I've run it myself. I came up high, believe it or not, right? Believe it or not, on brake dust. And I live in the city, right? I live in Boston. I live right in downtown Boston. And my work, both my locations are in downtown Boston. I walk everywhere. I don't even have a car. So I literally walk everywhere. And because of that, I'm breathing in this invisible train, bus, car dust all day long. And I was quite high in that. So what do? Just like you, I do my detoxes. I do a seasonal detox plus one extra one a year, usually with our community. And I also do my daily smoothie, my daily nutritional support, and I do my daily fruit and vegetable blend. So my daily fruit and vegetable blend is actually Praxel chlorella. It's completely gluten-free. Keep that in mind. And these things also bind to chemicals in our body. They do it naturally, and they do it at a very low level every day. So I'm not doing a heavy metal detox all the time, but I do run a hair tissue mineral analysis. So I ran my GPL tox. I'll link that up today. Ran the hair tissue mineral analysis. I found out, way back in the day, literally 19 years old when I went to my first functional medicine doctor, ran a hair tissue mineral analysis. Hilarious that I'm running the same test today that he did 20 years ago. It's pretty cool. It really, life sometimes comes full circle. And funny, I reached out to him a couple years ago and just thanked him as well. He wasn't my eventual mentor that I've talked about quite a bit, but he was the one who got me started. He moved me in the right direction. Amazing. So, of course, super grateful for him. And so I'm talking about the air filters. I'm talking about the smoothies every day. I'm talking about the greens powder. If you're in India, we don't ship to India, but I know that you can look at our products and you can find a comparable one over there as well. Or if you know someone in Canada, if you know someone in the UK, if you know someone in the US, and they can ship it to Delhi for you, then obviously you can get our products, but it's completely up to you. I just want to give you what you should be doing. And then as well, green juices are great as well. So that's going to help detoxify the body naturally. Just a few more things that I do want to say. My new upcoming book, which of course will ship to India as well. It will ship worldwide when it's out on Amazon, which is not out yet. It won't be out till about January 1st, but I do have confirmation it should be out right around then for the new year. So I'm happy about that. I'm a little sad that it wasn't out a month before that or 2 months before that. But in the grand scheme of things, I'll be doing this for the next 30 years. So everything is good. So you'll be able to see all the different steps that I talk about with detoxification that I actually use in my practice. Things like liver cleanses and, if needed, coffee enemas and those types of things. But those are more in depth. You, over in India, could do an infrared sauna. You could do an Epsom salt bath. You could do dry brushing. You could do Abhyanga. You're in India. You could go literally do Panchakama in India. That would be amazing. So there's so many things that you can do. So don't get overwhelmed by the chemicals. Yes, it's not great if you ever had the possibility to, on the weekends, travel out more to the rural areas, the countryside, or to even move from the downtown. That could be a possibility as well. Now, I know my own family is debating that right now. Do we want to live in the city, have the convenience of all that, but then miss out on the other things that we could have outside of the city, 20, 30 minutes out? So it's all a trade-off, and I totally understand where you're at. We're pretty much in the same position right now. If you work there and all of those things, it's something to think about. So hopefully I at least got you started, and I really believe that you'll be okay as long as you keep up with the detoxification and don't let it build up to the point that it becomes then a real issue. Okay, Lauren is up next. Lauren's asking, hi, I've had some stomach issues in the past. For the most part, I will get stomach pains whenever I eat something unhealthy or off the course of what I typically eat. I get severe lower abdominal pains, but not always. I'm interested in overall wellness and want to see where you typically tell your clients to start. Does it make sense to get the organic acids test? I also want to do the food allergy testing as I feel it may be wheat. Also, do you recommend hair tissue mineral testing or stool? I'm not sure where to start. I also live in New York. Would it make sense to do everything via phone, etc.? Thanks so much. So, Lauren, the answer is yes to all of it. As much lab testing as you could do, the better. If you could do every lab test in the world, then you should do it. Like literally, the reason is this, because of data. That's it, because of data. When you have as much data on yourself as possible, there's no longer a mystery. Honestly, I have people come to me all the time and I say, how much do you really want to know? Like, how bad do you want to know what's going on? So at the end of every consultation I do for my initial consultation, I don't give recommendations by initial consultation. Everybody knows that. My initial consultation is an intake. I get all the information over 1 hour, over Skype or over in person, and say with my health coaches, we do the same thing. And then we recommend labs. And we say, okay, and we also say, now if lab testing financially isn't feasible, we understand. Like, we are not here to push labs in you. We're here to help you get well. But if we run a lab and we show you the numbers of what's out of balance, what you have too little of, what you have too much of, we can correct that. That is not an issue. Now we have someone come to us and say, I can't afford the food test. I can't afford this. I can maybe do 1 lab or 2 labs or whatever it might be. We say, great, there's not a problem at all. Because here's what we can do. For all the labs we don't have data on, based on your situation of where you're at right now, having done 200,000 plus one-on-ones over the past however many years, we can make really great assumptions. And then based on your data, based on your biofeedback, we can make changes and tweaks as needed. So what I would recommend, if you're someone that gets bloating and severe abdominal pains, we need to start with the gut, right? Because if you're talking about lower abdominal pains, you're talking about your small intestine, okay? So if you're talking about belly button or below, there's not much else there except for your small intestine. So your large intestine is over on the right side and it runs uphill and then it goes across over your belly button, right above it. And then it goes down along the other side. The colon's not there. Okay, so we most likely not that. And your stomach's up a little higher. So really what we're talking about is some type of intestinal-based fermentation. Now that's causing gas, and the gas is filling up your intestines like a balloon, causing some abdominal pain. So organic acids test makes a lot of sense. If you have loose stool, if you get night sweats, if you have acne, especially acne on the back and forehead and all of that, then you might want to run a stool test to see if you have parasites. But first, the organic acids test. Then if you have the symptoms I just talked about for parasites, especially worse at night, then you run the stool test. Food allergy testing would be fantastic. I recommend I essentially tell people to eat a breakfast sandwich for 2 days before they do their food sensitivity test, since the most common food allergens are gluten or wheat, dairy, which you would get them from the cheese in the breakfast sandwich, and egg. Now, you don't have to do those things if you'll never eat them, but most people love breakfast sandwiches, and they would say, sure, I'll do that for 2 days and then take my test the next day. And then, of course, your normal foods as well. And then you'll have your gluten-based IgG scored there. Hair tissue mineral analysis, okay, that's great. That's more autonomic nervous system-based, absorption-based of your minerals, and then also heavy metals. So I'm going to put that as number 3 or 4, depending if you're doing the stool test or not. Hopefully that helps. One thing here, we actually cannot run labs for the food sensitivity test in New York unless you have an out of New York mailing address, meaning like from where you're sending it back from. And the reason is New York does not allow blood lab tests to be shipped to them. So please do keep that in mind. It says it on our food sensitivity test page, but do not purchase a food sensitivity test from us if you live in New York. Hopefully that helps. And Lauren, I know that you'll be able to find the answer that you're looking for without a doubt. Okay, let's get one more in today. I want to do this question because it's a short one. Alex is writing in, hi, Dr. Cabral. I'm a female with low estrogen and high testosterone levels. I was wondering if you had recommendations on food or supplements to balance out my estrogen. Many thanks. Okay, so this is very straightforward for me because I see this all the time in my practice. We have to do a few things. One, if you haven't done the 21-day detox, that's my first recommendation because the 21-day detox is actually a lot less work than people think about it. It's not. Like, you're going about your daily living, shake in the morning, vegan-based lunch, shake in the afternoon, and then like a normal paleo-style dinner, and that could be vegan, vegetarian, or paleo. It's actually pretty easy. It's the nutritional supplements and the actual 2 days of doing the shake fast that you're getting the body reacclimated in terms of blood sugar. Again, keep in mind, blood sugar, insulin, inflammation can increase androgens in the body, such as testosterone. We just have to make sure that in females, that stays balanced. 21 days of that, that's my biggest recommendation. And then we can start to get more fine-tuned if we want. Okay, so it's interesting that you have high levels of testosterone but low levels of estrogen. I always ask, well, when did you have your hormone test taken? Because if you had your hormone test taken like the last 5 days of your cycle, well, estrogen levels are going to be lower and testosterone levels are going to be slightly higher. And the reason is that's the luteal phase of your menstrual cycle, and that's normal. Your body naturally increases testosterone around days 17 to like 23. So what we're looking at here is, when was this done? But even if that's not the case, what I would say is we need to look at calming herbs. So calming herbs as well. Valerian works great. Kava works great. Chamomile works great. Black cohosh works great. Red raspberry leaf works great. But there's a product that you can just use at night called Best Rest Formula. It's part of our deep sleep protocol. I would recommend the deep sleep protocol for you. Even if you sleep great, it was going to get you more into that parasympathetic nervous system. And another product is called Femerin. And Femerin would actually be a product that helps balance the hormones as well. There's a lot more we could do, but I can't recommend the detox first and then doing a little bit more of the individualized based herbs if needed. And the next time you run a hormone test, though, and you want to look at your levels, and if you want to really see if your estrogen levels are low, well, your estrogen level peaks around days 12, 13, 14 or so of women in their cycle. So you'd want to test yours around that date. Hopefully that gives you the answer that you look for. That's a little bit more specific, and I hope that helps. Thanks, Alex, for writing in. Appreciate everyone tuning in today to the Cabral Concept. Thank you, as always, for your questions and, of course, your listens and shares. It means a lot to me. And stay tuned for tomorrow's show, where we're going to do part 2 of our house calls, where we answer more of our community's questions. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.